Hey guys, what's up? This is Craig Cosmo. Today I'm going to be doing a movie review called Hocus Pocus. Now, before I begin talking about the movie itself, I wanted to do a review of this movie back in, I believe it was around maybe 2012 or 2013, but I never had the chance to review the movie until now. So anyways, without further ado, let's begin with the story. So, this story is basically about three witches that takes place around 1692, where these witches lure this one girl, and apparently Zachary Binks tried to save his sister from three Sanderson sister, but unfortunately the Sanderson sister overpowers Zachary Binks and then turns him into a cat. And then fast forward to 300 years in the 90s is that Max Dennison was pretty skeptical about not believing in witches or supernatural beings or anything like that until he met a girl from Salem named Allison, and he kind of had a crush on her, and then he gave her the phone number. But then, of course, later on in another scene, she then returned the phone number back to him of saying trick or treat. And Max Dennison says, "Happy Halloween." And that's when Max Dennison runs into a bully, and then his shoe was taken, and then after that, he went home and wasn't very proud of living in Salem, Massachusetts, because he missed living in Los Angeles, California, in which he was so happy about, but he's unhappy in living in Salem. And while he was living in Salem, his sister named Danny dresses up as a witch, and Max Dennison didn't want to go trick-or-treating, but then Danny then started screaming at her mom, and then after that Max Dennison and of course Danny went on a trick-or-treating. Of course Max Dennison didn't want to go on a trick-or-treating because he misses his old home, but unfortunately he's not used to it at the very least, until they started having a nice conversation between Max Dennison and Danny. And then later on they went into this big mansion, and then finally they saw Allison in the mansion, where then Max Dennison says that, "Allison, why don't we go to this old Sanderson's house to make a believer out of me," like that. And so because of this, Allison then give them the tour and then talk about the place where the witches bury the children inside of these walls, or should I say underneath the wall, which was basically the legend according to Allison. And then after that, when Allison, Danny, and Max went inside the old Sanderson sisters' house, and then all of a sudden they came across a book, which they didn't open it and they didn't touch it because it was sealed inside the glass. And then Allison says that this book was bound in human skin, and that this book was given to the witch by the devil, because the devil gave the book to the witches. And then Max Dennison was so curious about the black flame candle. At first he attempted to lit it up until this cat started scratching, which turns out to be Zachary Binks. And then all of a sudden he decided to lit another fire on the black flame candle. Then the flame started to turn into a black flame, and then after all of a sudden the witches then appeared back into their own house or their cottage, and then the three teenagers started hiding, and then the witch started smelling Danny, and they decided they wanted to eat Danny, until Max Dennison stands up to the Sanderson sister, and then Winifred Sanderson started zapping Max Dennison. And then after that, Allison then uses a broom to hit the three witches, and then Danny and Allison escaped, and while Max started to stay behind and then light up the fire at the sprinkler, and then the water started coming out, and then he slips. And then when the cat started telling him, "Nice going, airhead, now go get the book," like that. And then Max Dennison's facial expression was like, "What the cat just talked." And then after that, Max Dennison then started breaking the glass and then take the book, and then they ran off. Now, I could talk about more about the story, but anyways, I'm gonna end the story here. So anyways, I'm done talking about the story. Now I want to talk about the characters. First, we'll talk about the main characters. Max Dennison, who is the main protagonist, and also a teenager who has a crush on Allison, as well as he is also a drummer, and he doesn't believe in the whole magic and superstitious stuff until he saws the witches for the very first time. And now next is Dennison. She is a sister of Max Dennison. She loves Halloween, and she is, as I said before, Max Dennison's little sister, and a very energetic character. And then the next we have is Allison, who is a hot girl that Max Dennison has a crush on, and that she also has very little and multiple knowledge about the Sanderson sister's house, as well as she's also very knowledgeable about Salem, which she is the resident, and she was born in Salem. And then next we have another character named Zachary Binks, who used to be human until he was turned into a cat, and this cat can never be deceased due to the fact that he was been cursed to live for 300 years by the Sanderson sister. So yes, and he is a talking cat who has so much knowledge about the Sanderson sister. So anyways, and now for Billy, who is an undead zombie. He used to be Winifred Sanderson's lover until he started having a relationship with Sarah Sanderson, which could probably be the reasons why his mouth was sewed up. But he's not really a bad or evil zombie, but he is technically a good zombie in the way. Now, next, I'm going to talk about the main antagonist of the witch. We got Winifred Sanderson, who is the leader of the witch, and that her goal is that she wants to steal all the life force of all the children, where she and her sister could remain young and beautiful forever. And then next we have is Mary Sanderson. She is the second sisters of the three, and she oftentimes barks like a dog, and she also has a thing for devouring young people, most notably children. And then finally we have Sarah Sanderson, one of the most beautiful of the three witches, and she possesses a siren song, which is one of her main powers, where she lures children in Hocus Pocus. And of course, I also forgot to mention is that those three witches kind of remind me of the Three Stooges, such as Moe, Curly, and Larry. So anyways, now that I'm done talking about the characters, now I want to talk about the dialogues that I like between one or two characters. I kind of like the dialogues between Max Dennison and Allison, which they both have, an interesting romantic relationship within the house, and that was a pretty good dialogue. And then one of my favorite dialogue is that Zachary Binks has a relationship with Danny, and she said she'll take care of you, which she was referring to Zachary Binks, and that her family would then take care of Zachary Binks for a very long time. And that was a pretty good relationship between Zachary Binks and Danny. And also another thing is that I like is that when Max Dennison defends his sister from the three witches, and that was also pretty good too, by the way. So now that I'm done talking about the dialogues, now I want to talk about the scenes that I like and that I enjoyed. Now, one of my favorite scenes that I enjoyed is that when the three witches were outside the neighborhood when they get off the bus, and then when there were kids running around in Halloween costume, even though the witches couldn't tell. But then there was one character who made a cameo in Hocus Pocus, and that character was Sonic, and At first I didn't even notice what was that blue hairy character, or who is this blue hedgehog, until I noticed that there was Sonic in Hocus Pocus, and that was a pretty interesting scene that I liked. Another scene that I actually like in Hocus Pocus is that when the zombie, also known as Billy, tries to attack Max Dennison uses the tree branches to knock out Billy's head, and then Billy's head started to fell down and he started walking, and then of course Max Dennison was kind of scared about Billy walking as a headless zombie, and so he ran away. And another scene that I also liked is that when the 3 teenagers and 1 cat run into the police, and they came across and they saw the police officer who was sitting on a motorcycle, and they asked the officer about the help about the 3 witches. At first the officer was like, well, you lit the black flame candle, then you know what, if you kids pull this prank, then take your cat with you. And then these kids and the cat started running away. What they didn't realize, and which is one funny scene that I actually like, is that they did not know that this cop wasn't a real cop. They weren't aware that this cop isn't a cop because it was just a guy dressing up as a cop. And that was a pretty fun scene. Oh, and another scene that I actually like is when Billy started climbing out of the sewer, and then his finger got crushed and he's like, ooh, like really hurt. And then there was a scene that I actually like in Hocus Pocus, is that when the witches were searching for the 3 kids that got the book, they came across the bullies that picked on Max Dennison, until eventually the bullies call the witches ugly, and then the Sanderson sister then captures the bully and then put them in the cage. And that was a pretty fun scene. So anyways, I'm done talking about the scenes that I like. So now I'm going to give out some of my overall thoughts on this movie. Overall, the characters was pretty much okay. The dialogue was okay, and also the story was also okay. However, there are some stories that I didn't like about, which I won't be talking about it too much. But anyways, the writing was okay, the dialogues was okay, and the scenes that I talk about was okay. So anyways, now for my ratings, I'm going to give this rating of this movie 3.5 out of 5 for being an okay movie. So anyways, before I go, if you enjoy watching my video and you want to see me make more movie reviews in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button for the future contents. So anyways, this is Craig Cosmo. Have a good day. Bye.